Good afternoon. Good afternoon, and welcome to the 152nd Landon Lecture on Public Affairs. The Landon Lectures were started in 1966 by the late Governor Alf Landon and the late K-State President James Mccain. The goal of the Landon Lectures is, as you know, to bring the most prominent public figures to Kansas State University to discuss the pressing issues of the day. We're very pleased today to welcome President Vincente Fox to the Landon podium to join 151 predecessors in bringing his thoughts and opinions on important public issues. Before introducing members of the platform party, I would like to introduce a few special guests in the audience. Now, you know we have many great friends at Fort Leavenworth, and I'm so pleased that the Brigadier General Edward Cardon, Deputy Commandant of the Command and General Staff College at Fort Leavenworth, is here. General, please stand. Thank you. And I think many of you know that we have a very special academic partnership with Fort Leavenworth. And we have a joint MA and PhD degree that we are offering in conjunction with Fort Leavenworth in the area of strategic studies. And just a great friend of Kansas State, top academic leader himself, Dr. Chris King, Dean of Academics, Command and General Staff College at Fort Leavenworth. Chris, thank you. Thank you. And then I believe Regent Jamie Perkins and her mother Alicia are here. Well, let me introduce a few legislators from the area. We're always happy when they can attend a Landon lecture. Now I see two of them right here with my very eyes. State Representative Tom Hawk. Sitting right next to him, the esteemed State Senator Roger Reitz. Roger? And then, of course, State Representative Sidney Carlin. Sidney? There she is right there. Now I would like to introduce members of the platform party. On my left, Dr. Fred Fairchild, Professor of Grain Science and Industry, and of course the President of our illustrious Kansas State University Faculty Senate. Fred? And then, next to him, Lydia Peel, a senior in secondary education with a minor in leadership studies and women's studies, and now president of the Kansas State University student body, Lydia Peel. On my right, a great friend of mine, Edward Seaton, chairman of the Landon Patrons and editor-in-chief and publisher of the Manhattan Mercury. Ed? And I want to give a special thanks today to Ed because he made a very nice gift to the Landon Lectures that has made President Fox's appearance here possible. Thank you very much, Ed. Thank you. And next to him, a person that we simply cannot do without. I'll tell you what, he is one of the most valuable players in the history of Kansas State University. We wouldn't be getting all of these superb speakers here for the Landon Lectures without the great work of Dr. Charles Reagan. Well, ladies and gentlemen, I'm very pleased this afternoon to introduce to you President Vincente Fox, the former president of Mexico. Well, I'm sure most people here know, but just to remind you that President Fox was elected president of Mexico in July of 2000 and served a 6-year term. He was the first president to be elected from the opposition party, breaking the stranglehold that the ruling Institutional Revolutionary Party had held on the country for 70 years. He played a vital role in Mexico's democratization and with strengthening the country's economy. During his 6-year tenure as president of Mexico, President Fox succeeded in controlling inflation and interest rates and in achieving the lowest unemployment rate in all of Latin America. In 1995, he was elected governor of the province of Guanajuato by an overwhelming majority of 2-1. As a governor, Mr. Fox strove to promote, once again, economic development by encouraging the private sector, foreign investment, and above all, the consolidation of small firms. He promoted the export of goods manufactured in his province and broadened his state's economic infrastructure so as to attract domestic and foreign investment. Maybe you don't realize this, but he was born on a ranch, raised on a ranch. He is married. He and his wife have 4 children, all of whom were adopted. And by the way, I'm very happy that his wife, Marta Fox, is here today. Marta, please, please. Thank you. Well, President Fox studied business administration at the University of Ibero-Americana. Then he pursued a management diploma at the Harvard Business School. He started his career with Coca-Cola in 1964, and I have to tell you, we're a Pepsi-Cola school, but that's okay. He began his career with Coca-Cola in 1964 as a route supervisor and rose over the years to president and CEO of Coca-Cola in Mexico. I'm very pleased to welcome today President Vincente Fox, a visionary leader with a deep understanding of the economic and social challenges facing Latin America. Please join with me to welcome President Vincente Fox. Mr. President?
Yes. Nice to see you. Good to see you. Thank you. Muchísimas gracias.
Muchas gracias. Muchísimas gracias. Muchísimas gracias a todas y todos ustedes. I heard a lot of introductions of personalities here in this audience. And I'd like to introduce the one that is here with me, which is Martha, my dear and loved wife, my companion, my professional associate, the women who I share life with, dreams, and we work together the whole day. We're building a presidential library in Mexico for the first time ever, right there at Rancho San Cristobal, where all of you have your home. And I mean it, where all of you have your home. And you're all invited to come and see that presidential library. we will extend our open arms to welcome all of you with a tequila, with some enchiladas, because we're partners, United States and Mexico, because we've been friends and we're neighbors, and we need a great effort among ourselves to know more about our mutual nations, economies. And I think it's very important, and I'm very thankful that I was invited to come here to this university. But because, and before I start putting some ideas in front of you on this relationship that we have built between United States and Mexico, between United States and Latin America, I think it's also very important that I, with your permission, say hello to all the Pedros, the Juanitas, the Lupitas, the Anitas, and all those wonderful, wonderful Mexican people, dear paisanos that are here working in this great nation. To them, my respect. To them, my love. They are an example for me. They are a very special cast of people, like every immigrant is. And at the very end, we are all migrants. Sooner or later, looking behind your own family, you would come from somewhere abroad, from some nation. This great nation has been built by immigrants. Among them, my own family. The Fox family came from Strasbourg in Germany, came to Cincinnati, Ohio, back on the 18th century. They settled in Ohio, working hard, trying to do better for their families. And then my grandfather, back in 1895, he decided to move south. He took a horse, started riding, crossed deserts, crossed mountains, crossed borders, if any at that time. I don't even think borders existed. And he settled as a migrant in Guanajuato, Mexico, looking for his American dream. He was coming from that heart of the United States in Ohio, which, by the way, gave 7 presidents to this nation, just that state by itself. It was a crossroad region, and he came to a crossroad region down in Mexico looking for opportunities without a penny in his pocket. He started working as a night watchman in this horse carriage factory. And in 10 years, by hard working, he would become the manager, and 2 years later, the owner. And so he bought that piece of land in the heart of Mexico. But this is the dream of the Americas. Equal opportunities to everybody. The dream of the Americas, freedom, democracy. And this is what we share in all of Latin America. This is why I salute my paisanos here, and this is why I want to tell them that I'm with them all the way. And that I am surprised that this nation is building walls This is the leading nation of the world, and I am part of this great nation. And with all respect, I tell to this nation, why building a wall? Why isolating from the rest of the world? If we've been building together a future, working, for instance, with NAFTA, by associating ourselves, North America, Canada, United States, and Mexico. And we've been building great things that many people is not pretty well informed of. For instance, the trade balance that we have built between United States and Mexico and Canada is the largest in the world. And we're part of that trading balance because we import from United States, we Mexico, we import more products and services than what Italy, France, Germany, and Britain do together. We import over $250 billion US every year of cars manufactured in Michigan, of computers, of products, meat from this great state, and all kinds of products. And that means, literally means, hundreds of thousands of jobs for US citizens. And we can keep building a much stronger association and the most competitive and largest market in the world if we keep working together. United States, Mexico, and Canada. Other parts of the world are doing the same. Look at the European Union, now with 30 different countries united in one purpose, which is human development, which is economic development, which is progress and prosperity to all families there. And it's incredible how leading nations like France, the proud France, or the proud Germany, or the proud Britain, had the wisdom and the vision to associate with their poor neighbors like Spain, Greece, Portugal, Ireland. Ireland had a per capita of income 25 years ago, not even $3,000 US per capita income. Today, Ireland enjoys a per capita income over $40,000 US, slightly higher than the per capita of this great nation. They've been working together. China, Goldman Sachs recently stated that by year 2040, the largest economy in the world will be China, not United States anymore. So China will overpass the size of the US economy, and United States will be second. Japan, that is second today, will go to the fourth place, and India will come in the third place. And guess who, according to Goldman Sachs, is coming to be the fifth largest economy in the world? Yes, you're right, Mexico. Mexico today is the 11th largest economy in the world. Mexico today is the 7th largest exporter of goods and services in the world. Mexico used to have a per capita income 25 years ago of $2,500 US. 10 years ago, it was only 3,000 US dollars. Today it's over 8,000 US dollars. And that is due to the visionary NAFTA association. That's why Mexico has been able to progress and to move ahead. And I know we have problems, we have poverty, we have violence, but we're working hard to build a nation under the principles of the founding fathers of this nation: democracy, freedom, equal opportunities to everybody. And we're trying hard to do our best. And yes, many, many, many Mexicans have not found the opportunities they're looking for in their own land. And very sadly, they have to say goodbye to their mothers, like many of your ancestors did someday in France, in Germany, in Ireland, in Italy, in Bangladesh, in India, or somewhere, to come to this land of opportunities. So, to my point of view, migration is an asset, and migrants are a very special caste of people. Of course, I am not for open borders. I'm not for people to come freely to the United States just because of that great reason in trying to upgrade themselves. Of course, I'm for an orderly solution of this issue. I don't even call it a problem, I call it an issue. An issue that we could administrate, that we could have the vision to make it a win-win situation to all of us, as long as we have regulations, as long as we have order, as long as we plan to the future what we want to do. I'm speaking about Mexico and United States right now. And there is a proposal, there is a bill in US Congress that addresses the issue very intelligently with a visionary support. And this is the Kennedy-Mccain bill on an immigration reform. Three very simple things. Number one, there is millions of people that are working here undocumented, but somebody is giving them the job. Somebody is hiring them, and somebody needs them. Or else, who's going to crop the apples in Washington State? Or who is going to harvest the vegetables in California? Or who is going to build your homes? Or who is going to attend the elderly? Who is going to nurse them? So it's a convenient flow up to a limit, and that limit has to be established. I was reading on the news this morning that there is about half of people coming this year as immigrants than there was last year. It's easy to understand. It's a market issue. It's a supply and demand issue. If there are opportunities here, people come. If people here don't want to take some jobs, Other people want to take them, those jobs, up to a limit. The number 2 point that is in that proposal in Congress or bill, and I read it also this morning, and it's pretty well supported, that this economy needs additional 500,000 new workers every year. Jobs that U.S. citizens are not providing for, and jobs that are needed to the economy. So the second point addressed by that bill is a temporary guest program as long as and as big as the amount of people needed by the economy that will be open jobs to offer. But the estimate is 500,000. So every year, according to that proposal, it should be determined how many and where would they come from. And the third point has to do with the human side of migration. Breaking families is a criminal act. I think it's something very bad. And it's okay that a migrant comes, like maybe some of your ancestors came, leaving the family behind, coming to have a job, earning some money, and then going back to their families. So the human aspect of migration is considered in that proposal. I think it's a great proposal, and the only thing we need to do is sit down, address the issue, and solve it. But maybe people say Mexico is not doing anything to control its people, to give them an opportunity there, and it is true. We used to grow at rates of 3.5% to 4% a year. Mexican population doubled 3 times during the 20th century, from 18 million at the beginning of the century to 36 million to 70 million and to 105 million in 1 century. That will never happen again, because now population growth in Mexico is lower than 1% a year. So we'll go as far as 135 million Mexicans, 1/3 of the size of the United States, 135 million Mexicans, and that's it. The population pyramid shows that by year 2035, we will level off. And then, and before that, we'll be absorbing most of our energy and the youth and the hardworking and the quality and the productivity of that labor. But the issue goes further and away than the relationship between Mexico and United States in trading. We have a common problem that has to do with drugs. And again, Mexico is blamed. What is Mexico doing to prevent drugs from coming to United States? And we say, what is United States doing to prevent consumption of drugs in this nation so that that drug does not come through Mexico, being produced in Colombia or Venezuela, which just happen to be in between. Drug produced in Colombia and Venezuela, transported through Mexico, coming into United States. We all have a problem because drug hurts our youth and even our children today. Drug provokes violence like we're suffering in Mexico. Every day, tens, dozens of people is killed. Some of them policemen, some of them public servants in government, some of them members of the cartels. Why? Because the more successful we are in refraining drugs crossing the border, the more the cartels and the criminal organizations distribute and promote that drug among our youth in Mexico. So at the very beginning, Mexico was only a place of transit for drugs. Then Mexicans learned and began producing drugs. And now Mexicans are consuming drugs. So now we have the three problems: trafficking, production, and consumption. So we have a joint responsibility to work on this and stop this from happening. And I am very glad that U.S. Congress approved an amount of money to keep supporting the fight against drugs, the fight against drug cartels in Mexico and Colombia. Venezuela we better forget about, because this guy there, he's involved maybe in drug trafficking. Hugo Chavez, because the way he thinks, he has to be drugged or crazy. One question we ask ourselves, with all respect: once the drug crosses the border, who moves it? Up to the Chicago market, the Seattle market, the New York market? Who collects the money? Who launders the money that comes from the drugs? We Mexicans are smart, but not for those great organizations that are operating here in this nation. Otherwise, how you explain the amount of drug consumed here? And that money, which means billions of US dollars, comes back to Mexico to bribe policemen, to bribe public officials. And it's very difficult to compete, because a policeman in Mexico is making somewhere around $600 a month, $800 a month. And here comes this offer they cannot refuse of $10,000, and you close your eyes. Or $25,000, and you let me bring in the drug through here. Or $100,000, and you do this or do that. Right now, we are undergoing a war in Mexico. Unfortunately, we have Presidente Calderón. He's a young guy, a Harvard graduate, very strong character, and determined to finish with drug cartels in Mexico and drug trafficking in Mexico. And we are all Mexicans working with Presidente Calderón to make that dream come true. And we'll make it. Be sure that we will make it. Because it will be to the better of our youth, because it will be to the better of our relationship between Mexico, United States, and because it will be better for everybody. So we're doing our job in Mexico. Let me finally say a few words about Latin America. Students here, and by the way, coming back to a university, Cicero used to say, it's like coming back to the crystal spring of water, to the fountain of youth and the fountain of knowledge. And it is true, he was so right. Because it's in universities where universal thinking, where freedom and innovation is at its best, where the environment is the best that a human being can find. And the human being gives its best when it is in the proper environment. And universities are the proper environment. In this case, by being here, it's that I want to tell the students here that study history, and I know the president is an expert in history, gave me a lesson in 30 minutes. I learned about the Mongols, I learned about the Germans and Hitler, I learned about the Russians and how they stopped the Germans. I learned about Iraq and the decisions that are being taken right there. And when you see history in Latin America, the 20th century, very recent history, look at what happened there. The whole century, most of us nations in Latin America were in hands of dictators. Who doesn't remember the military dictators in Brazil, in Argentina, in Chile, in Salvador, in Nicaragua, in Colombia, everywhere. The whole of the century, we did not have the opportunity to live in freedom and to live by democracy. And if it was not military dictators, what we suffer is corrupt, authoritarian governments, like we had in Mexico. But only at the very end of the century we woke up and we decided that we wanted to live by democracy and to have freedom in our societies and to have open market policies so that we could compete globally. And we met the challenge, and we did it. In the 80s and the 90s, most every nation in Latin America became free and became democratic, except Cuba. It was the only one. The rest, we all moved ahead. We wanted to meet the 21st century with better opportunities than the ones we had before. And as I said, what better environment for human beings to produce our best, to accomplish our dreams, than in a free, democratic environment, working on a market economy with responsibility, where ideas, where innovation, where hard working is important. And we also took another challenge, advised by this great leading nation. Open your markets. We want to bring in US investment to Mexico, to Chile, to Russia, to everywhere. Open your markets and you will benefit. And we did open our markets. And we did make those very painful economic reforms during the 90s in all of Latin America. Today we know in Latin America that democracy and freedom work. That market economy produces and reduces poverty and increases opportunities to everybody. We know that now. And in the last now 6 years, Latin America as a region has been growing at rates close to 6%, our gross product of the region. Decades and decades that we had not grown that fast. But all of a sudden, these messianic leaders like Hugo Chavez appeared, dreaming that he would be the Castro, the Fidel Castro of the 21st century. And he invites others, and he invests the oil money that is not his. It's Venezuelans people's money, but he still takes it and puts it in Bolivia, and puts it in Ecuador, puts it in Nicaragua. And he is trying to build that axis of this messianic, populist, demagogic leaders. And again, Latin America is facing the dilemma. Whether we keep hard working under a democratic and free environment, or we start again the old story of cheating to people, of giving away the fish instead of teaching how to fish, and intervening in other nations. So Latin America has to keep its path straight to the future. And I am absolutely sure that this 21st century is, number one, the century of women. We need women on the leading of our nations, of our economies, of our businesses, and everywhere. Because women bring a few very important things for development. Number one, vision. They're always thinking in the next generation, not how I make money today. They're thinking how a good world can be built where kids will grow with pride, with success, with opportunities. That's vision. That's leadership. Women also bring something else to the challenge of development: love and compassion. We machos that are in government, we don't like to talk about love. Oh. We don't like to talk about compassion. We don't commit. And this world needs much more compassion and much more love. Because Machiavelli used to say, you gain respect by fear and excess of the use of power. He says it's more safe he who provokes fear. But the saint, my hero, Loyola, San Ignacio de Loyola, he would say, you gain respect by love. That's the way you gain respect. So that's the kind of world we need, and this is why we need women in leading this world. That is why in the board of Centro Fox, the first presidential library ever in Mexico and Latin America, is being built by this couple, Martha and myself. And in our board, we invited not 40 individuals. We invited 40 couples so that we make sure that the wives, the women, are there in equal terms, so that we take decisions with that visionary optic that women have. And second winner on the 21st century, Latin America, of course. This has to be the century of Latin America. And we have to work hard. We have to associate with the leader, with this great nation. And I pray to God that the leaders of these nations come back to the dreams of the founding fathers. That the leaders of these nations come back to those great moving ideas like the Marshall Plan. Europe would not be what it is today if it were not because of the Marshall Plan that came from this great nation and its leaders. That great idea that unfortunately was stopped by the death of President Kennedy, the Alliance for Progress in all of Latin America. I really keep a lot of hope and optimism that we will have the wisdom to discuss our problems and conflicts, to associate, to build the nations that we need, and to understand that nobody can be rich and successful just by himself. We all depend today of everybody else. Yes, United States depends a lot on Mexico. Yes, United States depends a lot on Canada. Yes, United States depends a lot on the market in China and a peaceful situation on China. And yes, other nations depend a lot on the success of this nation. Thank you very much to all of you. Gracias. Thank you for the invitation, Mr. Lasso.
Excellent. Can you take a few questions?
Yes, we will have time. Yes, of course. Mr. Lasso.
Mr. President, thank you for a superb Landon lecture. Now, as you know, we are going to take a few minutes for questions, and so we have microphones to your right and to your left. So if you have questions, would you please proceed to the microphones? And His Excellency has said that he's more than happy to answer some of your questions. So, well, are you ready? Okay, please. Oh, you've got
Okay.
President Fox, thank you for your speech. My name is Maria Theresa Martinez Ortiz, and I am a Mexican woman. And as a Mexican woman, I am very worried about the situation for women in Ciudad Juarez. Why the government hasn't been able to stop these atrocities? What are the steps that are being taken in order to stop this situation? Thank you.
Yes. Well, thank you for the question, and this is part of the story I was telling you all about, the huge problems we're having right now with violence. And the border is very specific for this war that is going on in Mexico. Tijuana, Juarez, Matamoros, Reynosa, which are the neighboring cities. And it's because right there where the drug hits and what is being tried to cross. So that part of the territory is right now the most complicated that we have, and it's Juarez among them. Fortunately, as I said again, we have decided with U.S. security authorities and U.S. government that it is a joint responsibility, and we're working together in that border, and we're working together in all of the territory. And as I said, we're going to win. Maybe that saying that at the end of the tunnel is light, we begin to see light at the end of the tunnel, but right now we are on the very moment of major complexity and more dramatism in violence. But as I said before, we're working hard, and Presidente Calderón is working hard to defeat organized crime in all of the territory in Mexico.
Okay, thank you. Over here, please.
Hello, my name is Heather Woods. I am a junior in political science and pre-law. I really appreciate your lecture today. My question to you is, what is the status of legislation, or can you characterize the situation, of children born in the U.S. to undocumented parents, specifically in the field of education?
Excuse me, the question is?
The question is, for children who are born to undocumented parents, can you speak on the legislation or the situation specifically in education for those children?
That is why it's so important that we try to come with an intelligent solution to the issue and bring in rules and order to the situation. Because that's what I was referring to, breaking families. Those kids, many times, their parents are thrown away and the kids stay here, or vice versa. So families are being broken. And so you need a dosage of compassion, humanitarianism, to have the capacity to select and differentiate cases. Martha and myself, we were at Trinity University or Trinity College in San Antonio, Texas. And we were having a meeting like this, and one student at the end of the presentation, on the Q&A session, he came to all of us to tell us the story about this little kid, this 8-year-old kid, undocumented, that needed badly and urgently a heart transplant, and he would not be received at any hospital there in San Antonio, or would not be attended because he was illegal. At that very moment, Martha and myself, we took the challenge of trying to solve the problem. So I called on the microphone for a press meeting right after the session, and through the radio, TV, and newspapers, we convoked to gather $500,000 US needed for the transplant, besides finding whose heart will come to him. And next day in the morning, there were $250,000 US altogether, and many promises that the rest will come. So we immediately moved to the embassy, moved to Washington, and started asking. Unfortunately, the Children's Hospital in Little Rock said, I don't care if it's illegal, bring that kid here. We will not charge anything to make the heart transplant. 1 week later, we came and visited the kid in Little Rock, Arkansas, and at that day, precisely that day, they were importing this so-called the Berlin valve, because they had not found yet the heart, and the kid couldn't stay alive anymore. So they brought in by plane this valve from Germany, from Berlin. They were operating, making the surgery at that moment. We went and see him there, right there on the surgery room, and he came out alive, but only with a 30-day count to find the heart. Fortunately, thanks to God, the heart appeared. He had the transplant, and today he's happily living back in Piedras Negras in Mexico. The family had to go back. But I said, if you don't have a dose of compassion like all that people of San Antonio had by raising those $250,000 US in one night, it's difficult to have an answer for problems like the one you're presenting.
Okay, please.
My name is Ernesto, and I study law at Washburn University. I come from Juarez, and my question is about the North American Union. I read about it, which was signed in 1995, and which would unite Mexico, Canada, and the United States under, one single dollar, I guess. And my question is how true is that, and if so, like how near of a future, how near is it in the future?
We've been 12 years in NAFTA, and it's been very, very successful to the three of us. When you look at the hard figures, the facts, it's been very successful. So what we should do is to have a further vision on NAFTA, to further integrate in NAFTA. Give you an example. Right now, we're only trading. No more barriers, no more duties, we just exchange products. And we're doing pretty well. United States exports a lot of products to Mexico. Mexico exports a lot of products to United States. Next step, according to my point of view, would be to develop a customs union. Because right now we have different amounts on duties. So for instance, to import something to United States, you might be charging 10% on the value of the product, and Mexico will be charging 2%. So that product will come through Mexico and then from Mexico to United States. Or will come through United States and then down to Mexico if the opposite was true. This will standardize all duties all throughout the NAFTA territory. And so we would keep on advancing and advancing on further integrating. Let me tell you the success of Europe besides the Marshall Plan. And look at this concept of solidarity, which I could not convey here to Bush administration. Each nation in Europe provides 2% of their gross product to put it on this cohesiveness fund. That cohesiveness fund, by gathering this 2% from each one of the 30 and some nations that are part of the union, amounts to over 100 billion US dollars a year. That 100 billion US dollars a year is invested back in poor regions, on underdeveloped regions or territories, and in education and infrastructure. This is why the Irelands, the Spains, today the Polands, the Czechs, and else are progressing so fast, because they have a pool. They use that money to push their process of development. I've been proposing that we should do that here. It would be much less money than the money invested on the wall and on security, and much better invested money. We don't have to solve the problem of the border, and it's not going to be solved by walls. It has to be solved by ideas, by talent, by intelligence. And again, I come back to this nation and recall President Reagan coming to the Berlin Wall and shouting loud and clear, "Mr. Gorbachev, tear off this wall." We should not be building walls between Mexico and the United States. We should be building bridges, bridges of understanding.
Mr. President, thank you for coming today and speaking to us. I really appreciate it. I have one question here. I had two others, but you covered them very well in your speech. But this is the one concerning rights. I'd like to know what programs your administration began that are being continued in the present administration for the Chiapas region to enable the Zapatistas, enable them to have their civil rights, their land rights, so these folks are not having to go into the civil disobedience, which is, some folks are claiming they're terrorists, other folks are claiming they're freedom fighters. That's an argument that goes on, has gone on forever, and I think will go on forever. What programs are going on now in Mexico to help these folks out?
Yeah.
I'm sorry, my name is George Hodges, and I'm a non-traditional student here at K-State.
What does that mean, non-traditional?
I'm an old guy
You're not
coming back to school.
age.
I'm an old retired Air Force guy, and they let me come back to school to learn a little bit.
Muy bien. Bienvenido.
Thank you.
Most of the programs are being carried on, not only because it's a government that emerged from my own party, from the PAN. If somebody would dedicate a little bit of time on comparing President Cedillo, which was here, what, 10 years ago or less, maybe less, addressing this audience, is the former president before I took over. He was from PRI, from the opposition party, and I kept most of his very wise public policies on economy, for instance. And that's why in 10 years, we reduced by 35%, well, not we, I mean, I'm saying the wrong thing. 35% of families, poor families in Mexico, had the opportunity to overcome their situation of poverty because of their own efforts, because of their hard working. But because of the stability the economy had reached, and because interest rates when I came in, well, when Cedillo came in as president, interest rates would overpass 100% a year. When I took over, it was around 20% a year interest rates. When I finished, we converged on interest rates with the interest rates of United States on the range of 6-7%, which is where they are today. So we have a strong, solid, reliable economy today. Most of the economic fundamentals are in line with the U.S. economy. Programs like Seguro Popular. In Mexico, only half of the population have access to a social security system or a Medicare system. I don't know the figures here, but also I hear a lot of claims that the health system in this nation is not universal. Okay, in Mexico, it was 50% of people or families would have total protection on health. When I finished, through Seguro Popular, we raised that up to 80% of people in Mexico today have universal protection on health care and medicine. That program is continuing with the administration of Calderón. The scholarship system, we gave scholarships to over 1 million students to go to university. It's 1 million young people that is not here as a migrant because it's sitting on a university in Mexico. Those programs are still in effect.
And these are specific to the Chiapas region also, and it's helping them out in particular to help them better themselves and get them out of the situation they're in?
Well, as you know, when I came to power, still the situation in Chiapas was not settled. So for the first time, I authorized Subcomandante Marcos to come from Chiapas to open the circle where the Army had surrounded guerrilla in Marcos, and let him come to Congress in Mexico City. Many people thought it was a mistake, that it was too much of a high risk to take, to let him out of Chiapas. And I let him out of Chiapas. And they came all the way walking from Chiapas to Mexican Congress. And he addressed Mexican Congress. I think that was an act of democracy, it was an act of freedom, but also it was an act of releasing the tension. So still, things in Chiapas are peaceful today, except the hurricanes that they come by 2 or 3 every year and destroy everything. In southern Mexico, we get a lot of rain there, a lot of hurricanes like you get here in Florida and New Orleans and else. We get plenty of those there, but the rest is peaceful right there. By the way, I see a lot of Apple computers here. Most of the students use Apple computers here. Do they give them away? I need some for Fox Center. So you don't know if they're attending you and writing, taking notes, or they are on the internet flying.
Okay, we only have time for like one more question.
Hugo Bisuet from Querétaro. I'm a professional working in Kansas City. I have a question as an executive with Mexican experience, of course, and associated with the Korean party. Which presidential candidate would you favor, and which presidential candidate would you say will help improve the relationships between Mexico and the States?
Palin and Hillary. No, let me tell you, it's great what you're living on this election here in the States. It's a great show, in a real constructive, please don't take me wrong. Well, it's a great example to all of us and the rest of the world. I mean, a mature democracy, a 200-year-old democracy, the oldest democracy in the world, giving us this example of openness, of debate, of participants. And this is going to enhance the democratic aspirations of many nations, and it's going to consolidate the democratic attitude of many nations all throughout the world. This is a good example of what the leaders should be always showing, always teaching to the rest of the world. We missed that great leadership of this nation. We missed it. We need it back. Although this world today is very dispersed, you will not have any more one single leader in the world. No more. That's not going to happen anymore. But leaders is key to building the world we all want. And the thing is, we are all leaders. You're a leader, you are a leader, you are a leader, you are a leader. We are all leaders. And we're leaders all of our life. And leadership is within ourselves. But we need to know ourselves. Because leadership is a way of life. And we need to exercise that leadership. And that's what Centro Fox is all about. We have associated with many very relevant universities all throughout the world. We're going to bring in 10,000 kids from basic and high schools in rural areas of Mexico, in poor areas of Mexico, every month, just to tell them that you are a leader. Know yourself and exercise that leadership. And that's what this world needs. And there's plenty of that in this university. Because I thought Manhattan was in New York, not here, but now I found out that it's here. Okay. Well, this little place, through exercises of democracy and promotion of ideas like this one we have in here, is the way you motivate, you impulse, you promote leadership. And there's plenty of leaders here in this university that will come to the world to change the world. My only message to them, please don't forget about love, don't forget about compassion. Gracias. Gracias.
Thank you. Thank you. You got a nice picture too?
Ah, muy bien.
Got your name on it and everything else?